Welcome back to Coffee Talk. Grab your coffee. Join us for our talk today.
Yes.
Today we're going to talk about how old is old.
Yeah. And that's an old question. But what, at what age is considered to be old?
And have you noticed that the older you get, the older old gets? Because I'm 67, Keith is 70. We don't consider ourselves old, but our grandkids do.
They sure do. And I remember back when I was in my, early teens, I used to think, man, 50 years old is a really old person, and not anymore.
Yeah, because his dad used to play basketball with him at age 50, and they thought, oh my goodness, my dad's so old to be playing basketball. But I remember turning 30, and oh my goodness, I was devastated. I'm 30 years old. Yeah. I'm so old. And now, to be 30 again.
Yeah.
But it's changed how people are living longer. People are healthier now. My grandparents died in their 60s, and they were old because they didn't have as good of health care. We just are living longer. In the 1920s, 60 was considered old. And now, when you're 60, hey, that's still the prime of life.
In the way I think so anyway. May not be able to do things quite as well as you used to, but still you want to do them.
In the 1920s, middle age went from 44 to 55, which now would be comparably to 60. And it used to be in the 20s, you were considered old at age 60, and now that's bumped up to 70. The older you get, the older old gets, and I think it's because people are living longer. Yeah. We have better health care, we take better care of ourselves, and so we are in much better health and are doing much better than, say, my grandparents at our age.
To think that middle age, starts at about 70 now.
Of course we do.
Yeah.
In today's terms, women are considered old at 73 and considered very old at age 80. Where when I was growing up, it was rare to hear someone live to age 80. Yeah. And now it's like commonplace. Yep. There's 80-year-olds. My mother's 89. She walks 2 miles every day. And she's very healthy. So it's just a different day and time that we live in. And even though we know we're aging, we're not delusional.
Yes, we do.
We're not delusional. We know we're aging.
Yes.
But it is different now than it used to be, because old is getting older. People just live longer than they used to. When you look today at boomers, we're boomers.
We're one.
Why? Why do we look better than our grandparents at our age? Well, there was a lot of reasons, actually. We have an easier life than our grandparents.
Yes.
My grandparents lived on a farm, which is very hard work. They had an outhouse. They didn't have running water until I was like 18 years old, till they had an indoor bathroom. So things were just different. Our life is much easier than it was back then. We have access to clean water. We've had it our whole lives, where my grandparents, they had a well. Their water wasn't treated. They just got it right out of the ground. It's just a different life today than it was back when our grandparents were our age. We have things like waste removal, sanitation, electricity. I remember when my grandparents did not have electricity. And like I said, no running water till I was in high school. And when we went to the grandparents' house, you had to go to the outhouse. That was an experience.
When you take a bath, the same water was used. I had a brother and a sister. For all three of us, you just hopped in the water, and whether it was cold or not, you still took the bath in the same bath water as your brother or sister.
And when my mother, she was telling me about how they grew up, they got a bath once a week on Saturday night, and they would have to heat the water, of course, bring it in from the well, heat the water, and then they all took baths, you know, in the same water. So things are just totally different in our lives because of electricity, because of indoor plumbing, because of better sanitation all around. People are just living longer and a lot healthier.
And things are a lot easier to do too. Nowadays we have the, you know, the electric, you know, washer and dryer. I remember your mom, you know, her clothes, she had one of those wringer things. She would, man, that was hard work getting those clothes to that wringer and going through all that. For nowadays, you just throw it out, or you just throw it into the dryer. That's easy.
Comes out wrinkle free. Yeah. We don't have to iron things like they did back then. So, and my grandmother had a washboard. In fact, I still have the washboard. It hangs in our laundry room. And that's how she washed clothes. So our lives are just so much easier than they were back then. So it makes us, we look better because we've had an easier life. We've had a better life than they did then. They had to work really, really hard just for their basic needs. And we've not had to do that. We also have refrigeration that they didn't have back in the day. We have access to vaccinations. We remember growing up that before there was like polio, people would die of polio and different things that now we have vaccines for. So you don't hear of that. People used to die from measles. You don't hear of that anymore because there's immunizations. We have better access to health care and better access to clean, good food. Back then, it was rare to have fruit. My mother would always say that she liked the holidays because they would get oranges and apples and fruit that they didn't see all year long. It's just different. We have so much better access to things than they did back in the 20s and 30s.
So basically, you know, the older that you get, the older you get. Is that right?
The older old gets.
Yeah.
I used to
The
think
older
30
old
was
gets.
old.
Yeah.
Now I'm 67
Yeah.
and I don't think that's old.
If I make it to 80, I'll probably think, well, that's not too bad. This might be middle age at 80. Hopefully make it to 90, 95, who knows. But yeah, the older that I get, the older I think old is.
And you have the same mind, will, and emotions that you did when you were a teenager. And so sometimes in your head, you think, well, I could do that. And then your body, it tells
The body says, no way, Jose.
So
Good luck.
Our body is aging in spite of how
Yeah.
we feel up here. Anyway, we just wanted to talk about that because it is so different today than it was in the 20s, in the 30s, when my grandparents and my parents grew up. It's a totally different world.
Sure is.
And the older you get, the older old gets.
Yep.
And it's just a fact of life today.
Tell us in the comments how old you think old is to you. You know, is it 55, 65, 85?
And some of you youngins out there might say, well, they don't
You
think
guys
they're
are
old, but
ancient.
I think
That's
they're
what
old.
Our grandkids calls us ancient.
Our grandkids definitely say we're old. So
Yes.
we can't let our heads
Elderly.
get too big.
Elderly. They don't say old. They say you're very elderly.
Yes. And there are perks to getting older, but we'll talk about that in another video. If you have something that you would like for us to talk about in a coffee talk, let us know in the comments. We'll see you next time on Retired and Loving It. If you would like to see more of our videos, click the video that just popped up on your screen.